So basically, like Tracy said, you can use the resource as it's intended to use off the Big History website straight there. You can press start lesson and you can work through everything, teaching with the teaching tips, all the rest. But if you feel like you'd like a little bit more autonomy over the resource, or you're working with a far more structured system, or you've got less time to do it, you can customise this in any way that you like, obviously, as we've said again. And the best way to do that is just to think about your planning that you would usually do. Basically the way that you need to think in terms of using the Big History website to support your school outcomes and what you need for that is to see it as a resource. So you're looking at the curriculum, what it is that you need to cover off on. You're thinking about what kind of assessment that you're going to need to make sure that you assess that outcome, and then you're thinking about the teaching strategies and the resources. So a lot of you are familiar with that backward design process. And pretty much Big History can be used as a massive and extensive resource to help you really get that quality assessment task. So if you're looking for very specific assessment across content descriptors in the AC, you can find the stuff that you need from Big History. So in here, if there's something that you really know that you really want to assess and look for, rather than just use some of those fantastic already rubrics and things that are already embedded into Big History, if you just jump in here up to the little search bar up the very side up there, you can type in what it is that you need to look for. So an example that we gave earlier for the science teachers, if you want to find the concept of redshift is a really specific piece of evidence for the Big Bang. You can type that in and it will bring you up resources. So if you're looking for something to do with modernity or the Industrial Revolution, type that in and it will give you all of the resources in Big History that link exactly to that thing. Because as you guys know from just having a bit of a look, it's huge. There's so much stuff on here, and you want some way in of just finding the bits that you want to really specifically focus on to assess when you're doing your planning. So I thought that was sort of a tool. It's not, it's not extremely comprehensive, but it gives you a good overview of what you can actually do to use that. So just basically, backwards design for anyone who's not really familiar, which I'm sure most of you are, but of course you start by consulting your curriculum document. Think about what it is that the skill that you need your students to be able to do, or what it is that they want to understand. And if you're going to be really clear about how you assess that and make sure that they're able to demonstrate that, you then need to think about the evidence that you're going to need. And that helps you make that judgment. And from then on, you plan your learning sequence. So if you're using the Big History straight out of the lessons, that's fine. That's certainly a great way to teach it. If you really need to make serious pedagogical decisions based on your curriculum, then you just can use the Big History as this resource. So we've kind of gone through and just had a bit of a think about how it is that it can really support that differentiating the curriculum. And I really like the way that in here there's so many different types of activities. There's the tuning in, the active, getting up, moving around activities, the movie clips, the readers. Some people prefer to read with text, and then there's the whole transcripts to make that easier to embed that information. And a lot of the graphic stuff as well for the visual learners. So it's quite nicely scaffolded. And when you're planning and thinking about differentiating the curriculum, that range of activities works well as well. And of course, not to mention the text reader stuff. So critical and creative thinking is obviously such a big part of this. And some people are aware of the 21 CLD. Yep.
In the activities are in that order, you picked out a couple. You don't necessarily have to start at the opening and go all the way through to the quiz. You can dip in.
Yes.
That's right.
Yep. This is your resource. So if, oh, yep.
Chloe actually works for e-learning, so kids who aren't in the classroom, and has put up, we have an online classroom, virtual classroom system now in our state, Fronter, anyway, online classroom, virtual classroom, and Chloe put Big History into Fronter, and that's when I originally came in, because she said, well, I've done all this, I've done the whole lot, but can you come in as a history teacher and just cast your eye over what I've done, because I'm not a history teacher. And yeah, we've done exactly that for the Fronter, because there was no point taking all of Big History, putting all of Big History into Fronter, because we're talking about kids on their own with no one around to help. So we have done exactly that. We've sort of gone, well, we'll use this, we'll use that, and we'll use that, and we've turned that into lesson plans.
We've done the fishbone, Rocky. So yeah, we're using the big history as a resource, and some schools in Tasmania are using it, teaching straight with start, lesson, go, and teaching down everything in the lesson that it's intended. So that's fine to do. As again, this is just as a planning resource that you can use it in this way. So yeah, you don't have to just, yeah. I think it's the sequential unit, but not necessarily the every resource item.
Yeah, just to clarify, or just to reinforce that with Chloe,
Yeah.
the only thing that we would say is that you teach
Yeah.
in order and keep the narrative at some point. The level of depth and what you do apart from that, completely up to you.
Yeah, and I'm aware, teachers here need to assess against specific outcomes. So, that you need to do that. You need to find a resource that helps you do that. So if you're finding things around the Big History website and you're putting it into your planning, it does help to be able to narrow it down a bit. And so having that sort of search tool and things like that. And in some ways, if you start each lesson with that little lesson overview and read through it, it gives you a better idea of what's in there rather than having to watch all of the, which you would start anyway. But yeah, keep it in sequence, but use it as you will. So there's just a few little things here that work well with critical and creative thinking, and a lot of this is taken from the 21st century skills. So people who are familiar with these, the 21st century skills as part of a separate kind of package for critical and creative thinking, knowledge construction, and that's a lot about analysing sources and creating and analysing, so just that real construction of knowledge that comes from thinking about what it is you know and how and why you know that, what you can do with it. The collaboration is such an important part of learning for today, and so obviously you can see that Big History builds in a lot of teacher collaboration, but also those networks of student collaboration as well. So not just from in their own classroom, but across different other schools as well. So building in those ways that students can work back and forwards with other schools even around the world. The ICT for learning is about not just typing out your assignment and printing it, but about how you can actually use online learning to get more information than you would in a traditional way, and how you can upscale those learning activities in a way that you wouldn't have been able to do without that ICT capability. So Big History being the platform that it is a really good way of just embedding that in there. The real world problem solving, I really like this, and the reason that this is so key to everything that Big History is about is that now this is the real world. We're not just asking people to submit a learning task just for assessment and then go again. We're asking the students to think about, why is this assessment task a learning task, and why is it important to you as students and to the world? So you don't just have to write 500 words on what you think about that and then done. Think about what you can do, how you can go further, how you can apply that, why this learning is important for today. And then the self-regulation and skilled communication. Self-regulation, obviously, just about, making sure that you're organised and getting your things in. This is not necessarily part of Big History, but Big History provides you some good scaffolds and templates and checkpoints for students to help organise their thinking, their learning, their hand-ins. And that communication, that's that literacy all over again. So quick example of a couple of learning sequences, and then it's to you guys to design some stuff and have a look in Yammer. All of that critical and creative thinking comes a lot under the knowledge construction. So this one's a history. You go.
Yep. As I was saying, we just put all this, we took all of Big History and put it into an online virtual classroom called Fronter. I actually just grabbed this from that to get all the images and bits. So it's really, really straightforward. And I chose this one because it does fit in perfectly for those, because today was also about the curriculum and how it fits. So I chose this specifically because it is the human curriculum industrial revolution. So just really quickly, you can see it's a really simple learning task. You're reading about the industrial revolution. I've got some little thinkers there for the students to think about. What was the impact of innovation during the industrial revolution on population growth and the pace of change. Population growth, sounds like geography. So we can watch the atmospheric climate, so they're reading, they're viewing, and again I've got some little pointers for them. We're exploring Gapminder. Has anyone here gone through Gapminder before? It's a fabulous tool. If you haven't, get into it, I really like it. It takes a map of the world and distorts it to show different trends and growths and population things and stuff like that. So if it shows, for example, a map of the world, and then you click on one to show, I don't know, say like connectivity to the internet. If the countries that got the most connectivity get bigger and those with least get smaller. Or there's a really nice one about how much land, population to land ratio, and of course you've got countries like India that suddenly explode and get huge because it's such a big population, and Australia virtually disappears. So it's a really interesting thing. Gapminder is lots of fun, so they get to explore that and start thinking about implications for the future. The presentation they need to give, and they're thinking critically, why is there such big differences in connectedness, power, wealth, and whatnot. Now this is as simple as it can be. We're reading, watching, exploring, presenting, thinking critically. But what I love about big history, what I love about big global projects, and this is where I get really, really, really excited. Has anyone heard of deforestation? One, two, couple. I was involved in that quite heavily before I had my baby. I loved it. Love big projects. So it's one thing to explore and read and watch. We can do that in the classroom, that's fine. But when they're presenting, because this is an international program, it's like Tracy was saying, you get on the camera and say, Mike has got this presentation after looking at Gapminder on this, and this. I want to share it, who wants to share theirs? Or who wants to do this with me? And your kids over in China and my kids over in Tassie, little old Tassie, we're going to present to each other and we're going to learn from each other. So the presentation bit, you can make it as big and exciting as you want. Now, this one I grabbed because someone over here was saying about year 7s, yep. So because it's all very centred upon year 9 and up, I wanted to just throw in some year 7 stuff, plus my class is year 7s this year, so it's silly for me to plan all the stuff that I'm not going to use. So again, it's really straightforward. Looking at Paleolithic ancestors, looking at the hunter folks after modern humans had left Africa and roamed around the world and migrated, and we're going back before that, sorry. And so we've got how the hunter-gatherers are living and foraging. And so we're watching and we're reading. And then I chose this one for a couple of reasons. One, I want to show that yes, we can use it for across the grades and the curriculum. Two, making this about your local area. I'm very big on making sure that we've got locally Indigenous things going on in our classroom. I start every lesson with an acknowledgement. And so this one is an activity straight from big history that students research and create a hunter-gatherer menu. But I've made this specifically about the Tasmanian Aboriginal people. We're very lucky at our school. We have what traditionally used to be known as a midden. It's not a term that a lot of the Aboriginal community like now because it means tip, and it wasn't a tip, it was a gathering place, somewhere where they would gather together and eat, more like a communal dining room than a tip. So we don't really like the word midden anymore. But we're really lucky, like literally when I was studying hunter-gatherer this year with my grade 7s, we went down to the foreshore, picked up pieces of 1,000-year-old coal that are softened and rounded, and there's little wallaby bones and goodness knows how old. Okay, so we're very lucky. So I wanted to show that one to connect it into the younger grades and to show that yes, whilst it's really simple, watch, read, research, create, it's up to us to make it that extra bit. So when we present to a worldwide audience, when we're researching about something to do with hunter-gatherers, make it about your local hunter-gatherer community that was here, our Indigenous. Okay, so that's me.
Yep, 2 more and then we're into it.
Then we're done.
Biological science, quick one out of that Tracy alluded to before, the project-based learning on inventing a species. Prior learning, DNA, genetics, evolution, food webs, ways of knowing about biology. The learning tasks, so this is where the DNA one came into it. So they need to invent a new species, but they don't just make it up from scratch, don't just start by having a shot at an alien fish, whatever. It has to be based on actual science understanding how that could potentially have evolved and why adaptations and features would be useful. Discuss how that would impact on other species and how that would happen in a cycle and overall interrelation with the biosphere. So ecosystems, food webs, all those sorts of things. What they had to prepare was a 3D model of their species, a Wikipedia entry, real life kind of ICT use, stuff that might be actually useful and things that they might see and do, so that they're really getting the idea of creating something that might be of use to others. And then they've got to do the presentation. This one here is the work planning template, so those rubrics that Tracy showed before, all about how that they can do their stage out their presentations, talk about how the others fitted in. There's not, I mean, you can sort of see where we're going with it. Year 10 Science and Geography is the Anthropocene, and this one here fits really well with the geography, sort of the, I suppose the human, no, what's it called? The climate and, yeah, it'll come to me. Geography, the Year 10 Geography, it's basically in human-induced environmental change, so it's just perfect for that one. So after we've done the background for that, this Anthropocene is one of the articles that's in Big History. Simply, many climate scientists, geologists and anthropologists have proposed that the Earth's climate is changing at a faster rate because of the activity of humans. That may come as a surprise to some or not. Some have proposed that calling this new era of human-induced climate change the Anthropocene. So there's a article on that in Big History. It's a good persuasive sort of text with a lot of different things in it. Based on that, the students prepare for a written summary, so again synthesising and evaluating that knowledge from this particular article and drawing on their background knowledge from the others. Concept map, so connections, visual learners, bringing in ways of representing ideas and information rather than just, writing out again summaries. And then they need to collaborate with the group to make a Facebook style page on reducing your carbon footprint. Now, that again, real world, useful to people now, something that the students might relate to. They could in fact publish that Facebook page if they want, or present in assembly, or present globally on that way of reducing your carbon footprint. And if you're taking this from a scientific point of view too, you can embed scientific understandings of the carbon cycle and energy production, and you can also think about strategies for global engagement in reducing the carbon, and you might bring in a bit of science technology in there as well. So it's just a way quickly, I mean these are not new or revolutionary activities whatsoever, they're just what we're doing in our classrooms, showing you how you can make those links between the curriculum. So just the self-assessment rubrics before, the project checklists that are all part of the Big History things. So all this stuff's in Big History, it's all for you to use and take and change and do what you need to, and it's just a way of how those things again match up to the Australian curriculum, how you can design an assessment task to assess what you need out of the Australian curriculum, how you can embed those critical and creative thinking skills, the collaboration, all the good stuff that comes with those 21st century skills. Pretty much, we've looked at those examples before, and this is where you guys get to do some. We'll be here to help again if you want logins for the new site and all that sort of stuff. And Tracy, will we go through till half an hour for doing this? Yep. Lovely. Okay, sing out if you want help with logins, and there, give you a hand. Thank you.